All right, let's do it. We're here at Sprintray headquarters with Dr. Vule and Dr. Steven Shao. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
So delighted to have both of you. And you guys are OGs of CAD/CAM, OGs of 3D printing for sure. That's why I wanted to have you guys on the show. Talk about some of the history of how things rolled out, that we're here, that 3D printing is becoming dominant, iOS is becoming dominant. So let's jump into it. Vu, let's get it started with you. Where did you start? How did you start your journey in, I would say, digital dentistry?
My journey is a bunch of happy accidents. So I started, if you rewind way the heck back to UC Irvine, I'm just walking from class to class with a friend, and he says, "Hey, what are you doing this weekend in October?" Nothing. Want to go take the DAT? We're studying for the MCAT. Yeah, it'll be good practice. Okay. And so I ended up taking the DAT on a whim, not even studying for it. And I got a pretty good score, and I ended up in dental school. And so got through dental school, and, basically...
Which school was it?
Loma Linda.
Loma Linda.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so dental school in some ways was just kind of an impulse decision. We said, well, the score looks good. I guess we might as well go here.
That's one way to start the journey.
That's how it is. It's never follow your passion. You turn things into passion, and I believe in that.
Or sometimes it's, or sometimes it's just you just follow the path, and sometimes you notice that, hey, this path looks a little better than that one. So let's take a little detour and see where it goes.
So you got into Loma Linda, which is, by the way, one of the most advanced digital schools I've encountered with. That's amazing. It's a great school. So how was it in dental school? How much access to technology did you have?
Oh, man. So to be fair, I'm class of 2002.
Right.
For context, the first iPhone came out in 2005.
Wow. So this is pre-iPhone.
So all the nerdy guys like me, we had Palm Pilots. I actually wrote some software for the Palm Pilot to make some lunch money back in dental school. That was fun. So I think we called it Clinic Base. And that was fun. We wrote it to track our clinic production and stuff in dental school. And no, we were, as far as...
Windows OS, right?
Oh my God. Palm OS was its own OS. And so there was a database platform on the Palm OS platform that I used. I don't even remember what the name of the platform was, but I just basically said, okay, here's a database. Let's write it to fit our needs, because the school wasn't providing a way for us to easily track our clinic requirements. And so I developed that software. I'm sure they've done something better since to help people track everything on the Palm Pilot. And gosh, I don't know where my Palm Pilot even is anymore.
Probably in the attic somewhere.
But digital technology has gone a long way. When I went to school, physical impression material, digital was just barely... The only digital scanner I had heard of by the time I graduated dental school was 3M scanner.
Yeah.
When
was the first time you saw a digital scanner?
Oh, dental school. It was the 3M. It was a 3M scanner, black and white view. It was titanium dioxide spray. So you'd have to spray the teeth completely matte, because it's based on. It's not based on distance mapping. It was actually based on luminosity mapping. So just like the Blue Cam still is, it was based on just a gray value. And so you have to spray all the teeth completely white.
Well, who cared? This is mid-2000, right? It's so advanced.
You know what hung me up on that thing, honestly, was that they wanted $300 a month.
To use it.
And I was just like, I'm not paying $300 a month. I can buy rubber goop for way less than that. And so at the time, it
was a luxury.
Keep in mind, I was raised, I'm a first generation immigrant. I literally was thrown on a boat from Vietnam. So we have a very frugal mentality, and the idea of paying $300 a month just to use something
I get it.
that
Same here,
to replace a product that cost me $100 or $200 a month, it just didn't seem to make business sense at the time. Because if all you're doing is taking data so that someone else can make something for you, it doesn't really, at the time, it didn't really make your life easier. It didn't make your patient's life easier. And you have the 5-figure initial investment on top of that. So it didn't make sense. Fast forward to the day, fast forward to what? Let's say 2013. So right. 2013, is when I decided to do CEREC. And I say that it's funny because I went into CEREC as a CEREC basher. I hated it. There's Dentsply Sirona, big bully company, totally closed system, very expensive. Why in the world would I want to do this?
They're still the same.
Not much has changed.
They have changed, actually.
The door is cracking open. The door is cracking open a little bit. There's some recent developments we can talk about later, but I can see them. I can see the door cracking. I can see them attempting to change.
Let's hold on to your entry to the CEREC world. I want to get back to that. I want to hear your thoughts on 3M. These guys were pioneers in 2000s, have digital scanners, and you can't find them anywhere.
I love 3M sticky hooks that stick on my wall. That's my number one 3M product. But in terms of dentistry, it's strange. They have very good dental products. I mean, the Reliax Unisem family is very good. We've seen in Sprintray's own internal testing, it's one of the better cements to use, right? So 3M makes some very good dental products. They make some very good impression products. Actually, locally here in Irvine, they have a facility to make the impression materials. One of my patients was involved in that. Very, very good stuff.
But on technology,
they've been really quiet over the last 5 years or so. I haven't heard much from them.
In the CAD/CAM, in the materials world, very good. In the CAD/CAM world, the scanner kind of fell off to the wayside, and I think
didn't innovate more. I think that was
no, they didn't. They had one basic product.
They bought the company, right?
Yeah, they had one basic product, and this is one issue when you have a huge corporate conglomerate is. Yeah, there's lots of people doing things, but leadership has to show emphasis and focus on it. If they don't,
it starts from the top.
Things get forgotten.
That's my issue with big public companies getting into innovation. Everything is dollars and cents driven, and they really block innovations because it doesn't make financial sense. And one thing in Sprintray, and I'll always say that, as long as I'm a mechanical engineer, you guys know that, as long as we're in charge, we're going to push innovation first. We're going to push innovation forward to deliver better products.
I think that's one of the things that we see in bigger company. For them, it's all about different ROI in different sectors of the business that they have. So if they feel like, well, the dental CAD/CAM sector does not yield enough ROI compared to that consumer sector, industrial sector, they just stop investing in it. Companies like Formlab, they were one of the early innovators in the dental 3D printing industry, but lately you haven't heard anything from them. Other companies, they're basically try to pivot onto other industry that they find more profitable rather than focus on more of what we need clinically.
Exactly. So Vu, I want to, in the show, I love to ask questions about backstories. You just said first generation immigrant, the hustle, you getting in basically with 2 suitcases probably, if I'm guessing. I want to hear some of those experiences, challenges you went through to become Dr. Vu Le today.
So I'd say, I think I had it relatively easy. We landed in a good spot. We had a lot of very helpful, extremely helpful people, sponsors, who sponsored us in the Dana Point area. And they set us up with apartments and everything. Amazing. And part of the apartments, they helped my dad get his first job, his first car. And I think that the main struggle really is just all the work that goes into all the work and the obstacles to get to where you are. Sometimes you wonder, right? As an immigrant, you wonder, is someone who looks different from me going to have an easier time? I don't know if that's really productive thinking.
Exactly.
To be honest, I want to be the determinant of my own success. I don't want to be the person who says, oh, I'm not successful because I'm a victim of something or someone. Maybe that's true, but again, I don't think that takes your mind to a positive place. It certainly diverts energy instead of moving forward, looking backwards. I don't think that's a very productive use of my thoughts. So I really enjoy just sitting down and saying, hey, these are the challenges I have. What can I do today to make it better than yesterday? What can I do to make these jobs that we do? And it's a day in, day out job. How can I make the next case better than the last case? Right?
Exactly. So, Dr. Shao, I want to ask the same question on the digital journey from you. Tell me your first exposure, where you started your digital journey.
So I went to dental school in Boston University between 2000 to 2004. I remember the first year 9/11 happened. It was a big shocker. The first time I heard about digital dentistry, I was in dental school in Boston University. They had one of the very first CEREC system in institutions. However, it was presented in one single slide on our lecture. We're not allowed to see the machine. We're not allowed to touch it. They had it locked away on the 8th floor in the research laboratory. So we all know it's there. We all know there's this amazing thing. They wouldn't even give us a tour to look at it. Fast forward a few years, I graduated. And I started my journey in dentistry working in my in-law's office. And my in-law was a first-generation immigrant from Vietnam. And then she opened her dental office in the late 70s. And for one reason or another, it's like Battlestar Galactica, it's just like Admiral Adama, it's just completely anti-technology. We didn't have wireless phones. We had a phone in our clinic that is attached to a 30-foot telephone cable. And then we had no computer. They had a typewriter. And one day that typewriter broke. And I was real excited until my father-in-law went to a swap meet and bought another typewriter to replace it. So we didn't have computer. We didn't have a computer in the office for a very long time. It was a chemical development film. It was alginate impression. Nothing was digital. I worked there for a few years, and I tried to introduce an intraoral camera into the
What year
clinic.
was this?
This was... we graduated in 2004, so probably around 2005, 2006. I tried to bring an intraoral camera into the office and realized that there was no computer, there's no screen to attach it to. And this brings us to a very good point that Dr. Vule brought up earlier. One piece of technology on its own does not create an ecosystem. When you have an independent solution, sort of like the 3M scanner, so you can scan into 3D, so what do you do with it? Well, what can you actually do with the data? So you can only send out to a laboratory. So all of a sudden, this technology became almost an extension for a laboratory to earn more business from you, but I can't do anything with it. And I think to Sirona's credit...
That's the CEREC's contribution.
Yes. CEREC's contribution is people were saying, oh, you're paying $150,000, $160,000 for this milling machine. Well, it's not a milling machine. It's not a scanner, and it's not just the oven or the software. They're offering us an entire ecosystem. So from A to Z, this is what you can do when you incorporate a workflow rather than one specific piece of technology. And I got into CEREC and CNC after I left my in-laws office, and in around 2008, we purchased our office from Dr. Nader Mer, and he's an innovator in dentistry by himself. He's had experience CEREC technology since 1996. So back then, because he speaks 4 different languages, he actually flew over to Germany and he brought a CEREC 2 system.
Such a brilliant guy, yeah.
And back in the 90s, he flew to Germany, went to a dental convention, spoke fluent German and everything. He bought an entire CEREC system and stuffed it on a suitcase, and he brought it back to America. To this day, he has his garage, and he runs on German language. And that's where
that out.
Yeah, that's where his journey started. When I took over his practice in 2018, he insisted that I also purchase a CEREC system from him. And when I told him, we already spent this much money, me and my wife had just graduated, I don't have the finance to pay for this whole entire thing. My mentor, Dr. Mir, he actually told me, you know what, I'll tell you what, take the system and just use it for 6 months. And if you still don't feel like you can extract enough profitability out of it, I'll take it back and you don't have to pay a penny for it.
2008?
This was 2008, 2009. And I immediately took a liking to CEREC. I didn't take any formal classes. I was the president and the founder of a video game club in college, so I have some experience with CAD. So it didn't take me long to figure out how to utilize this technology. So that's how my journey into CAD/CAM started back then.
Amazing. And I want to ask that question about being a standalone system versus an ecosystem. Obviously, you mentioned 3M didn't get traction in mid-2000 to 2010, but 3Shape was successful. 3Shape came with a standalone. Still to date is a standalone scanner. They added the design software, but it's not a closed ecosystem. But what do you think, Boy? They're probably they democratized standalone 3D scanning. I don't know if democratize is the right word, but they popularized maybe that. And to their credit, they make one of the best scanners in the market.
I'd say the 3Shape is, if it's not the best, it's definitely, top 2 or 3. It's a fantastic product. I remember first using the Trios at a convention, and by that time I had purchased my CEREC OmniCam, and it was generationally better. I mean, there's not a lot of products where you try it and you think, it's
Holy
too,
cow, this
it's
is very
too,
better.
it's not just one level better. It feels 2 generations better than what Sirona was offering at the time. And honestly,
And it still is, right?
Still is.
honestly, that Trios 3, it took them years for the Prime Scan to come out and arguably catch up. And there's pros and cons to everything. We get into nitty gritty about it. I think that the company that we also need to say really democratized scanning, you have to look at Medit as a company that did.
I agree, they democratized it. I'm going through the timeline. We're going to get to Medit. 2015, 16 is probably when they get it started. But 3Shape, when was the first time you hear about 3Shape?
Probably 2013 or 14 time frame.
And how much was the iOS back then?
They were expensive. Well, CEREC, it's kind of hard to say because they price the software and the cart, and it's
Together.
kind of confusing pricing.
It was about 60, 70,000 back
It was
then,
60
I
or
believe.
70,000 for what they call the AC, or the acquisition center, acquisition computer. And that was a computer cart, a monitor, and the scanner all rolled into one. And the 3Shape came around, and 3Shape, when it first came out, they had their own computer too. They had a computer pedestal cart. It was really a fascinating little piece of industrialized design at the time, because it was this very, I'm a little bit of a design nut. It has a very sleek, modern, monolithic looking
3Shape.
setup. Yes. They had
Copenhagen, they had
this very sleek pod. It didn't look like the beige box PCs of the time.
Yeah. They have the style, and also they offer a value proposition, but their scanner, in my opinion, was vastly superior to that or what Sirona offered at the time.
Yeah, it was vastly superior. The issue was, and it is for
She was ROI.
is ROI, because if you're, again, getting back to the immigrant mentality, let's you could say it's frugal, you could say it's stingy, let's just call it cheap. Is that we want to try to save money. Business is about making as much as you can, but spending as little as you can as well. And so a lot of times, if you look at digital dentistry as a way to just decrease your consumable cost, you're not going to find it there.
Yeah.
To be honest, we do night guards digitally all day long, as an example. If I were to actually send it to Glidewell will do it for a very low cost. The thing is, when we do it digitally, we have a workflow ironed out now where I can make a night guard that fits perfectly. I mean, virtually 0% remake rate. More importantly, virtually 0% adjustment rate. And so the quality of the product and the quality of the experience for the patient got better. Same on the subtractive CNC side of things. The crowns we make are different. They're actually procedurally different, and they produce a different, I would argue, better conservative product for same-day crowns than I would get sending to a lab. All that starts with the digital scanner. Now that it leads to a workflow, it's not just saving polyvinyl. If you're buying a scanner to save polyvinyl,
that's the wrong mentality. I know we're all immigrants probably here. We have that mentality. But it's not about that. It's about the convenience. It's about the control. It's about what you can do with those technology, the marketing aspect of it.
And I'm finally seeing that come around. I'm finally seeing people come around to, hey,
get it now.
They're starting to get, hey, we can do things with these things. Exactly. It's like our friend Dr. Wally says, you're buying a little mini factory.
I think that's part of what people miss in this whole entire economy of localized manufacturing is that people always talk about, oh, we can do this cheaper than if you were to send out to a laboratory. It's not about the cost. It was never about the cost. You can do it a lot faster. Now, that efficiency improvement in the orders of magnitude makes a huge change on how you run your practice or how you run your business in anything. But the qualitative analysis of how much better things can be, and that improvement in quality, part of it is due to your mechanical property and also the technological advancement. But a huge part of that is that when you try to manufacture and prototype something locally, you get that instant feedback on every single mistake that you have ever made. So if you're a Shao Doctor, if you print your own night guard, if you make a mistake, you'll instantly fix that. And you learn it through experience not to make the same mistake over and over again. However, if you are an apprenticeship dentist and you take an impression with a bite that is not centric and you send to a laboratory and your splint does not fit, you'll never learn that lesson. You just think, well, this lap messed up and this night guard doesn't fit. And you'll be making the same mistake over and over again. And throughout your career, maybe 40% of all of your night guard have to be remade, or you have to spend half an hour adjusting it. And that's a part of the quality improvement that might not be immediately apparent for people that's getting into digital dentistry.
That's a great point. So we're at 2012. You're just pretty much at that time heard about the Reshape. You know all the CEREC, probably heavy CEREC user. And you mentioned you started as a basher of CEREC.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And then how did you become a heavy user? You guys use it daily basis probably. And
what it came down to me, and this is going to sound really stupid, is that at the time, a couple of things really just sold it for me. One was my assistant at the time was very slow making temporaries. It was something simple, like stupid like that. You think, okay, was it some ROI calculation? Was it something? Was it the nice free gift they gave you? No, it was my assistant was very slow at making temporaries, and so she would sit there, making a temporary, and I would sit there and time her, without any help on my part, and it would be sometimes 30 minutes to make a temporary crown. And granted, looking back at it now, maybe I should have had a different assistant. I don't know. But
hey, it pushed you to become a digital doctor.
But I was like, if it takes about 30 minutes, realistically, and things always do, by the way, things always take longer than you think they do. Our brains somehow wrap that around. The classic example of that is like, you've got 10 free minutes. Oh, I'll do this. It'll take 5 minutes. And you always end up late because you squeeze in one more task. Our sense of time is distorted.
Has a disproportionate perception of time.
It's a gravitational time dilation, right? If your focus is like gravitating toward a place.
So if you stand outside of the process and just observe, you'll spot where the inefficiencies are a little bit more readily. And that's what I had to do, was just step outside the temporary making process, let her do it and see how long it took. And I realized, wait a minute, I can mill an Emax crown in about 15 minutes. I can post-process and bake it in about 15 minutes. I could have had a final crown in the time she's making this temporary. And then my patient doesn't have to walk with a temporary. We don't have to sit there and re-cement the temporary when it falls off or breaks.
Exactly. So it forced you to...
Case in point.
So you bought a system in what year was it?
2013, I believe. And case in point, last week, or maybe 2 weeks ago, my CEREC mill finally broke. The motor broke. So we've been down. I had to actually do a crown prep, make him a temporary. And what did I do this morning before I come in? He broke his temporary. I had to remake his temporary. You know how long it's been since I've had to remake a temporary?
How long? 10 years?
Just print one.
Well, yeah. So we I thought about that. So I get a lot of, sometimes people criticize me, like, why don't you print? Actually, someone just busted my chops on that too this morning on Facebook. Why didn't you print it? I'm like, well, sometimes you have to, again, time dilation. We always think something takes 5 or 3 minutes. Actually add up everything and see what it really takes. And for better or for worse, I can do an analog temporary.
1 unit.
In faster time than I could print one.
In 1 unit. When it's 3 units, probably printing makes more sense. Yeah.
Depends. So it depends, because you also have to factor in the CAD time. You have to factor in print time. You have to factor in wash time, post-cure time, polishing and finishing times.
Doing them yourself, though.
Yeah, so if you have an assistant, that is an argument for it. Okay, the answer is at 7 a.m. on Friday morning, I'm doing it myself.
There we go.
Yeah.
But you're right. That's a totally fair point, right? Because if you are printing the temporary, the nice thing about being able to print the temporaries is that you can walk away while the printer's working and go do something else. Same with the CNC mill.
Right. You take, as you age, I think you need to take a little bit of a mental break.
Yeah.
So essentially, like when you 3D print something, when the printer is working, when the washes unit, you are checked out mentally. So you're not focused on this one specific thing that you're doing the entire time.
And that's one thing that I think a lot of dentists discount from the outside, is that, oh, wait, well, it still takes, that's still too long for me. I don't want my patient in the chair for 2 hours. I want to keep my chair moving. Well, you can actually just keep yourself moving. So I can sit there.
So that's an interesting. What does that mean?
So we're talking about, instead of going from, in dental school, we're taught serial task.
Right.
Serial task management. We're going to prep the tooth. Then we're going to take an impression. Then we're going to make the temporary. Then we send it to the lab. And then the lab makes it. And then we cement it. And when you get into digital, one of the things that opens up is parallel tasking, multitasking.
They're not programmed to.
No, we're not.
Operate
Well,
that.
and dentists are programmed to it. We just don't think of it from that mindset. Almost every busy dentist already multitask. They just don't think they can do it here.
Exactly.
So every dentist now already numbs the patient, walks to the hygiene room. While the anesthetic is working, they're doing their hygiene check. They walk back, start prepping, walk away when the prep's done. While the assistant is setting up, they're going to the next hygiene chair. They're doing that check. They're walking back. They're already multitasking. Every dentist is already multitasking already.
I have this, one of my roommates in USC days is a dentist right now. He has a very busy office, and every time we talk about same day, he's like, I'm very set in doing things with my lab. I don't want to keep patients 2 hours in the office. I'm very busy. Do you think that model is practical for someone busy? I think he does, what he said is more than 60 crowns a month, which I think is heavy volume.
I think that depends on your dental auxiliary. The point being that if in my office with design fabrication specialist like Maggie, so if he has multiple assistants that's well trained in the digital workflow, he can make it work. But case in point for your roommate, his quest is that does this technology make my office more efficient and more profitable? And currently, with the way that CAD/CAM is right now, whether it be CEREC or 3D printed, it might not work for certain offices. So I feel like it's a practice builder in that if you have this technology, you can potentially get more patients, you can potentially do more work. But if you're already swamped, and every day you go into the office 9 o'clock in the morning until 5 o'clock in the morning, you don't have time to sit down, you just got patient back to back, then
That's something to think, yeah.
Yeah, it might not work for you.
I see.
We also have something I mentioned to you earlier called the curse of knowledge. The curse of knowledge. The curse of knowledge is something where you will judge things by what you already know versus what someone from the outside will judge it. A case in point would be, say, a Marvel Comics movie. Someone who reads comic books all their lives or cartoons, they will look at a Marvel movie through completely different eyes because they understand more of the context of these characters than someone who doesn't care anything about Iron Man or whoever. And so they'll evaluate differently. And so when you apply that to digital dentistry, I'm looking at things through the eyes of someone who
is expert,
paid their dues, making lots and lots of mistakes and remakes and missteps on CEREC and other things. So when something 3D printing comes around, I go, oh, this is actually pretty easy. I have the curse of knowledge because I forget, because I've made all those mistakes, I know the mistakes not to make going to this new area. Someone else who comes at this brand new, they don't even know which way to point their scanner correctly. They may not even know things that I have taken for granted and learned. And so the learning curve for people is steeper. if they're jumping in the pool all at once versus someone who's been in the pool a long time, we have to always remember to think of things from the uninitiated person's perspective.
And I think that's part of it, where once you're neck deep in this technology, and you're, especially as we are, we're very passionate about the technology, we forget what it's like to start up. So similar to like a BMX bicycle guy, they're going out there doing like, triple flips and all that. And then there's some people that just be happy to be able to hop on a bicycle for the first time and ride for 15 feet. And we kind of forget that. So for us, the curse of knowledge goes both ways. We're also much more difficult to satisfy from Amir's perspective. So our demand for the new technology, our completeness for the new technology is so much higher, because we're searching for, it's not even for perfection. It's the next step and the next step after that. There is no perfection. There's only a direction. There's a momentum onwards and upwards. We always want more. But for most people, if they can print a splint in their office in half an hour, they're ecstatic, and the system is already worth whatever they're being charged for.
There is a knowledge tree that we have already climbed over, 8 years now of being 8 years of being a digital dentist, and that we have to consider, where someone is coming from on it, without being patronizing or condescending about it. I don't want to appear like an elite on this either. I just want to say, hey, I know where this is coming from. One of the really beneficial things for me actually was my last dental assistant that I hired came with zero dental background, because she came through training during COVID. They cut all their clinical hours. So she went through a dental assisting program with no clinical experience. Boy, was that a shock.
Wow.
And
that's scary.
Oh my gosh, there were, at the beginning, I didn't think she would make it. I honestly thought, ooh, this is a rough one. I don't know if she's cut out for this. And it turns out she's become exceptional. And I think I'd like to think that it's because of her attitude. She's got a fantastic attitude about things. She approaches things, how can I learn? How can I do this better? Stephen was talking earlier about your assistant is what makes a digital workflow work, and he's absolutely correct. Remember, I talked about serial tasking versus parallel multitasking. The only way parallel multitasking actually works, the machines don't actually do all the steps for you. Even ones that claim to be fully integrated, all one piece machines, you still have steps in between that you have to do. And the one nice thing about digital dentistry is if you can find team members that they may not have the knowledge, but if they have the attitude, as I said again, I can take someone who has Zippo experience and make them productive. I can take a very experienced dental assistant who I write before that and make them productive. So I'm very grateful to have the tools to do that. I mean, people think, oh, he's with Sprintray because, he's a KOL. They pay their KOLs tons of money. If only they knew the truth. But seriously, what makes the Sprintray system work is that they do pay attention to making it not just doctor friendly, but team member friendly. And it's a very understandable system. Well, I say, is it as easy as a toaster? No. Is it easy as a microwave? No. There is some training that has to go into it. It's not completely idiot proof yet, but I've noticed that more and more idiot proofing measures have been taken. I just talking to Hossein down the hallway about some more idiot proofing that he's built in.
Yes.
And I commend him for that. It's incredibly ingenious though. They'll just keep on going.
It helps a lot that the R&D and the engineering team is right next to the repair team. So whenever people make a mistake, they just walk over. And then statistically, once you analyze, you can make a lot of improvement. And I'll say, case in point with regard to the Sprintray ecosystem, I just had this conversation with someone online. Nobody makes perfect products, and everybody makes mistakes. The key indications to the success of a company, in my opinion, and the build quality and then the engineering quality of a product is how fast you innovate to solve problems. How well do you listen to the problem that the end user are having? How much you keep your eyes open to spot all of this potential mistake and immediately put it into the feedback loop to basically get these problems addressed. This is one of the things that always gravitates me towards Sprintray, because it's not that we don't have problems. We always see problems. In fact, as early testers and as speakers and such and consultants and such, it's our job to point out the problem. Sometimes it sounds like we're being very picky. We're not. We're aiming for that perfection. We always want things to be better. And we work with multiple companies, but Sprintray is one single company that always stands out to me. They pay very close attention to the feedback, and then in a few months' time, you see these problems resolved. Whereas like other company, Sirona, for example, we have the MCXL unit since 2011. The lid cracks and breaks all the time. It's been over 10 years. That issue was never resolved. The errors that we get when we're getting proposal from a Cerex software back in 2009, to this day, we see the exact same problem repeated because of basically vector triangle inversion error. That could have been easily fixed as a new AI software system. The company that don't take these feedback properly and they don't improve their product, I'm not saying their product is not very good, but I have less hope for them in the future because they're growing so much slower despite where they start. And I think in the market and in the field of digital dentistry, we're starting to see that crossover.
Yeah. Now, and this is something that every single day at Sprintray, we're fighting with complacency. That's my biggest fear, is we become too complacent to not to solve those problems. And that's how we roll here. That's how we innovate, solve problems. Again, as you said, every system has a problem. We're really good in detecting them and just being nimble and solve them. And then finding niches that we believe help users. Crown Kit was one of those examples that if you asked me 4 years ago, I would have told you we're going to make bigger plates, bigger tanks. I would have never thought we're going to go to smaller, but when it made sense and the timeline that it took us to bring it to market was only 6 months. But the time that we decided to bring the Crown Kit, to actually relaunch it was a 6-month time frame. We need it. We got to focus on it. We brought it to market.
That's incredible, because I know a lot of people aren't manufacturing nuts like me and Steve, but you have to get mechanical engineering together. You have to get the resin team involved. There's so many people, hands in the kitchen, that have to work together to make something complex like that work.
Mass produce it.
And yeah, we had some initial growing pains with it for sure. But at this point, it's a pretty darn good product. And I was talking with a dealer rep. I'm good friends with a notable dental equipment dealer, and I speak for them occasionally. And they were saying, what's really driving a lot of. I said, what are people, when they buy a printer from you, what is it that they're asking for? What need are they trying to solve? And it's funny. It used to be that it was, when I first got into 3D printing, it was, I can generate a surgical guide. That was the number one thing. When I first started,
that was the number one thing.
The number one thing when I first started, I remember it. It was 2014, actually. It was 2014. I went to Dr. August de Oliveira's class. And the big killer application, it wasn't printing models, because you can pour models in stone. I can
no
still
one
do.
Cares. Still, no one cares about printing.
Still do that. I can still do that faster in stone. I don't want to, but I can.
Right.
The
surgical guide was
a killer app, because you can't pour that in plaster. So you couldn't do that easily. The labs at the time, were charging a pretty healthy fee for them.
I remember
the ROI was there.
Yeah, we were using no-bill guy, I believe. You have to buy like a $5,000-$6,000 surgical guide system. You have to buy all new drills. You have to take a CBCT, send it out to them. And it costs you nearly $1,000 to make that surgical guide. And the problem is that the way that they fabricated the material that they used was so brittle that 50% of all the no-bill guide cases we did, the guide will break during surgery. So
what year was this?
I believe this was, I don't remember the exact timing. It was a few years after I purchased the office. I want to say about 2012, 2011.
So 2012, I would say 3D printers existed in the lab, but stayed for model printing because there was no other application outside of model printing.
No, that was Formlabs was ruling the landscape at that point.
That was 2015 probably.
Yeah, Formlab actually
15
came
or
later.
16 is when they launched the surgical guide resin. That was probably, we got to give them credit, the first real application. And it was due to, you guys remember Nextent?
Yes.
It was Nextent resin that brought a full library of biocompatible materials, and we had denture base, we had gingiva mask, we had IDB tray, we had splint. Probably 9 of them didn't work as an application, but they had a library.
Yeah.
I like to joke that I brought my first Sprintray printer from a guy out of his trunk in LA.
I did the same
It
thing.
was true.
You bought a Moonray.
I bought a Moonray from Han. Yeah.
On, yeah.
I did the same thing. We met at Peterson Automobile Museum. But you're right. Nextend kind of brought about this awareness, and they invested heavily. And unfortunately, it's also one of those companies that we had high hopes for, and they disappeared.
They sold to one of them.
Yeah, and then after they sold, then
Big companies. That's what happened.
So 3D Systems?
This system bought them. Yeah.
what have they done ever since?
Nothing. They just killed the brand. No, just killed the brand.
It was very sad.
Made a lot of noise with their printer, right? The Nextent
Well, it didn't work.
No, it was a good printer. That printer was good. It
was
just,
very fast. It was very accurate. The scuttlebutt about was the tanks were brittle.
the thin resin tank. So 2015, 16, this is how I see it. The design software were maturing at the same time. Let me take one step back. We're at 2014, 15. You're getting iOS becoming more and more popular thanks to 3Shape. Meta dropped 2015, 16, totally changed the game of affordable iOS standalone system. That was really a push to the adoption of 3D printing. Then design software, you guys don't talk about that, but Exocad and 3Shape and at the time Blue Sky Bio, they've done a tremendous job of making content to 3D print basically available.
I would say if you had to say who democratized CAD the most, I'd have to give credit to Blue Sky Bio.
I do too.
Blue Sky Bio, Corey Glenn, Baron Grutter. I think those guys were the Johnny Appleseeds.
Right.
Yeah, we
right,
started
right.
with Baron Grutter's class in BSP too.
No, shout out to Dr. Grutter, the team Blue Sky. They've been pioneers in democratizing. The design aspect of it was tough. And they were the first one that created the credit system, right? You didn't have to buy a $10,000 software. Just pay me per surgical guide.
The cost of entry is awesome. In fact, you can go in there, download the software, you can play around with it, watch all the tutorials. It costs you nothing until you decide to export the file, which is, I think, is a really, really good business model. This compares to spending $10,000 on Exocad and 3Shape, not knowing whether or not you can fully utilize it.
Yeah.
It makes it a lot more accessible for most people.
This is 2016. So you guys both started on Blue Sky Bio to design surgical guides, right?
And Mesh Mixer.
Mixer, yeah.
Oh my God.
And what was the first printer you had?
3D printer?
Yeah.
I was going to say a dot matrix, but
3D printer.
what was the first 3D printer I bought? Oh gosh, I have to think way back. It was probably some monoprice piece of junk. I think it was.
In filament, right?
It was a monoprice.
Yeah, you
it
guys
was a
both
monoprice.
started with filament.
I think
You started with Moonrays.
so. Yeah, no, I had to convince you to get FDM.
Yeah, because I keep printing toys with my Moonray.
So FDM, for anyone who doesn't know, stands for Fusion Deposition Modeling. What it really means is you take a long filament, which looks like weed whacker string, and you push it through what basically is a hot glue gun with robot arms to draw molten strands of filament. And there's pros and cons to it. But when people talk about 3D printing, typically in the consumer space, they're talking about FDM because that's like by far the most
Put it
popular.
on the monitor, so and I'm going to be sharing it in the podcast. This is FDM, yeah.
Prusa still comes out on top.
This is FDM.
Yeah, I mean, if you just Google 3D printer, you're gonna see
You're going
FDM.
to see FDM, hot glue gun style. What brand did you buy?
It was Monoprice. So Monoprice is actually a for those who don't know, it's a gigantic reseller. They're basically kind of took the place of Fry's Electronics in a way early on. Before they kind of exploded before Amazon did, even with electronics and things.
Right.
And they actually would white label, contract manufacture other companies' 3D printers. And so they sold like a $100 or $200 3D printer. I think that was my first.
Which one is that? First one, right?
First one I bought was the Mini Delta right there. That was my very first printer. That $170.
Oh, with the Delta.
That was my very first 3D printer. And boy, oh boy, it was fun when it worked. But, it really didn't work very reliably.
This is 2015, right? Or
This would have been in 2000. This would have been 2012.
2012. And you never did any medical dental use with it. Probably it was just toy.
At the time, it was just to make things and to try to just try to 3D print things. Then I moved on. I think I went through 5 or 6 inexpensive Chinese printers
to get to this
to
point.
get to where I got to when I finally arrived at Prusa printers.
The best
and
ones,
I think
by the way.
At the time, yeah. At the time, it was.
The first, when I got into Sprintray, I think I was one of the first.
2016.
I was one of the first few dozen
I met
printers.
you, and you remember where you met me first time? It was Redondo Beach.
Redondo Beach, David Cellini.
The David Cellini's study club. Dr. Cellini, shout out to him. Yeah, Dr. Cellini's. And you had a Moonray.
I had a moon.
And we just launched a surgical guide resin. And you were like, how do you cure this?
Yeah.
And remember, we didn't have cure boxes. This is the time we were recommending nail spas. And
No, I remember.
So remember, you sold us the surgical guy, and then he sold me filament printer idea, and I sold him an electric Fiat. That's what happened.
Yes. I ended
That's
up
right.
buying
That was the
my
first
first
electric car. There you go.
I bought my first electric car there.
so you guys got Moonray in 2016 probably, or 17, I believe.
Late 2016, early 2017, I believe. It was 2017?
Yes.
I want to say it was earlier than that.
You guys had the red one, not the green one.
I had my first printer was a Moonray S.
Moonray S, this one.
That's right.
So maybe my dates are fuzzy.
That's why you bought it, to print
There
surgical
were
guys.
2 applications exactly at the time. There was models, and then the next thing I bought was surgical guide, and the next thing after that was Nextdent OrthoClear. I remember,
Next and Ortho.
and I was so disappointed because it was purple.
It was purple. It was too rigid and too uncomfortable. I made so many guards for myself. It was impossible to wear them.
It's impossible to fit.
This is the time that we realized we have to make our own resins. It's almost impossible to push adoption without becoming a chemistry and material company.
So you set out to be a hardware company.
That's how I'm a mechanical engineer. So I'm a robotic guy. But it was 2017, 18. We said, if we want to focus in dentistry, we have to become a material company. And probably one of the best decisions we ever made.
Especially around that time, remember, Nextdent got purchased by 3D System, and they promptly cut off the supply. Yes, that's right. They cut off everyone. It wasn't just us. And then we had spent a lot of time testing the material. We had spent a lot of time telling people about it, and all of a sudden that was gone. And after that, we just said, hey, if we don't have our own material, why are we bothering promoting this? Why are we bothering testing for them?
There's so many things in dentistry that are decided because of business strategy and economics.
Right.
And as a science person, it sometimes sits with me the wrong way.
I think we're more engineer-minded, right? We care more about
when
solving a problem.
When something is not available to you, not because the machine can't do it, but we don't have access to this material because it is a strategic business decision.
They're basically saying, if you want to continue to use our material, you have to buy our printer.
Exactly. That's why they cut our supply. They said, we're not going to sell you resin. You got to distribute our printer. So we're a manufacturer. We're not going to do that. That's how they cut us out. But again, it forced us to become a chemistry material company at the same time. Probably, this is 2017, 18 that we put together a material company, and we said we go from 100% outsourced material in the next 3 years. We want to be 100% insourced.
Yes.
And to date, we're leading innovators in the material field just by producing just better, unique materials for dentistry.
There is a strangely wide consensus that Onyx Tough is perhaps your best product.
I'd love to hear that. Would you repeat again? I want to do the clapping.
It's so strange, though, to see a product that is as well received. And it's funny because I actually thought NightGuard Flex was such a good product in its category.
That's what I thought,
It was
too.
such a good, happy compromise. And we need to understand that everything's a compromise. There is no perfect product that does everything. There's no one magic bottle that I can do to print everything. Everything's a trade-off. Let's say, for instance, Onyx Tough. Onyx Tough is one set of compromises that'll make it work very good for full arch provisionals, for implant hybrid prosthetics. But that same set of compromises makes it not a good choice to make a crown.
Exactly.
It's the same thing as CNC mill, though. That's why we have a variety of different material on the laboratory side of things.
Yeah. So if you fry chicken, it's a very happy set of compromises versus grilling chicken.
It's two different things.
Then again, there's some products. So, for example, the Night Guard Flex, I can't think of any downsides. I can't think of any obvious downsides why I would use any other product other than this, why I would send out to a laboratory, why I would use the next 10. I mean, it just works in all scenarios.
So I will say, I came from Night Guard. So before I was using Night Guard Flex, I was using Keystone, my goodness. Keystone Key Splint Soft. Gosh, it's like a tongue twister.
KSS.
Never make your product a tongue twister. Yes. Make it easy to come off the tongue.
So do you guys know the Onyx Tough story?
No.
It was the same thing that Steven, you mentioned, that we launched Onyx because it was a necessity to fill a gap in a full arch provisional category. We needed a solution. But in 6 months of launching the first Onyx, it's called Onyx 1, we saw fracture. And then we're watching online community like hawks and just doing more research. We were like, this material is probably the strongest we've ever built. Why does it break? Then we came down to that it's not about the strength, it's the fracture toughness. So we formulated Onyx Tough to be the highest fracture toughness materials and with the highest value in the market. And today, that's why we're getting a lot of success with it. And nothing has come close to it so far. And I'm sure in the future, someone will bring a better one when we're not sitting essentially on our butts. We're doing a lot of R&D in the future of it.
I'll say this, though, about the way that Sprintray, the resin engineering team, the hardware, and everyone works together. It's sort of like there's an argument between an open system and closed system. And I'll say that Sprintray isn't exactly a closed system. It's not fully open, but we're a vertically integrated system, which means when you're watching online and see that people with Onyx, with fracture and all that kind of stuff, no one's going to say, well, is your printer set in proper? Did you post-cure it in the right setting with nitrogen or whatnot? Are you sure you didn't calibrate it wrong? Are you using a different printer? We know immediately this is a chemistry problem. So we can go in there and resolve this chemistry problem. Now, if you have 3 different companies, one company is making the resin, one company is making the printer, and the other company is making the post-processing, and you have another party that's providing the curing profiles. When a problem arises and you go like, well, my bridge fractured, now you have 4 different variables you have to solve. And you go, well, I watch online and people...
And no one takes responsibility for their own product, basically. They got to say it's the other guy's problem.
And no one will take responsibility. So how do you resolve that issue? You spend 6 months arguing instead of actually focusing on one single problem and then to resolve that problem to make a better product. And I think this is where Sprintray continues to come out ahead.
Listen, Steve Jobs, I think, said to make a good software, you have to make your own hardware. I think that was his motto. Same thing, to make a good appliance, you have to control all pieces of software, hardware, material, and training aspect of it. We talked about that. These 4 elements are so important, and I was never a fan of piecemealing it, stitching things together, and that's why we vertically integrated.
And that's actually incredibly difficult to do, because even to this day, even Sirona can't do this. Sirona tried to make their own material and they fell on their face. So they're defaulting back to working with other companies. It's actually very difficult to do what Sprintray is doing right now. And that's also why other companies, they can just say, they look at Sprintray and go, well, we should do that too. Well, it's very difficult to do.
Everything's a set of pros and cons, right? Remember, we started with talking about being a CEREC basher, because I thought Dentsply Sirona, they're so closed off and proprietary. But the argument back then, they made some sense back then, The argument was, hey, we're going to control the hardware, we're going to control the software, we're going to control the materials, and give the user a consistent experience. It's true. The question is, how does it come down to implementation? There's more to it. There's implementation, there's price, there's training. all those things. And the reason why we're seeing larger companies like Dentsply Sirona plateau and smaller, more nimble companies like 3Shape, Sprintray, Medit take off is how they do things, how they relate to their customers. Can they keep delivering value? Closed or open? Yeah, I think philosophically, open sounds really good. It comes with a set of pros and cons, as does closed.
It comes with if you have to compromise your quality and reliability. For example, if you have a completely open system, you're a resin manufacturer and publish a set of data on the strength and the integrity of your product, but this strength is only replicable in one specific system, then is it fully honest to advertise this value knowing that people using different set of printer are not going to be able to achieve the same quality?
I mean, you've shared about a product, I don't want to name names, but there's a certain resin a notable resin on the market, restorative resin on the market, where unless you cure with one specific post-cure unit, if you cure with anybody else's,
They don't make their own post-cure. That's another thing. We do.
50% loss in flexural strength.
25 to 30% loss, I believe that was the study was showing, but it was significant. That's a lot. That is a lot.
So I want to know, what are the top applications in your office with 3D printing? What's your go-to? Let's start with Steven. What's your go-to application, the number one at this point?
So I'll say at this point in my office, the go-to is not one specific product. Now it's an entire workflow.
Right.
So the way that I'll describe it is a patient is going to walk in and they're going to ask about, I want to do some bleaching. My front tooth is a little weird. We scan everything into Medit. We do a full mock-up. We show the patient exactly what the problem is. All right, this tooth is not yellow because of the coloration. It's because it's rotated. To de-rotate it, we can do ortho, and orthodontic aligner we can print in-house. The wax up that I do for the patient, I can print it out and show the patient in an articulated model. And if they want to see what it looks like inside their mouth, I can print out a shell time and snap it on their mouth. And it makes a big difference whether or not you do this in 5 hours versus you do this in 30 minutes. If I can do this in 30 minutes, I can show my patient full scan of their face, full scan of their teeth, printed model of their articulated before and after the wax up. I can print them a shell temp that shows them what it looks like after everything snaps on. Well, this patient could have just gotten a cleaning and a bleaching. Now they're walking out, getting the treatment plan for orthodontic aligner treatment, 16 units of veneers, and a splint. And we're talking about a 10 to 20 fold increase in the revenue for your practice. And we are doing the patient a favor because we're properly diagnosing all of this problem. What the crown kit and what the full arch and the faster printing speed allows us to do is to completely change the way that we interact with our patients. It enhances, and I think one of the first things that I did when I started speaking on 3D printing was that 3D printing, we keep thinking it as a manufacturing technology. It's actually rapid prototyping technology, and to a certain extent, the purpose of that rapid prototyping is a flawless communication between you and your clients. I can show you with no uncertainty exactly what we're talking about, exactly what we're proposing, and this is the blueprint of how your dental treatment is going to go. And that's such a powerful technology in your hands. And so a lot of time what gets missed is that we're talking to dentists regarding, hey, this is what a manufacturer wants to sell you on the product. They don't focus on that part is irrelevant. What's the most important part is your interaction with your patients, and how can we help you on that portion? How can we help you grow your business utilizing this technology? But back to the curse of knowledge, I feel like sometimes we're doing like triple backflips in the air and people just want to do one pull up.
They freak out. Right. They freak out totally.
But that's what I do in my office on a daily basis now.
No, absolutely. Very important. And then what about Dr. Le?
I have to say,
night guards?
When I listen to you, I think that's just one, we could sum that up in one word: hustle. Is you hustle. I don't mean that in a cheating, scheming sense of the word, but you bust your butt and work hard for your patients, and high level skill, high level technology, and that's how you operate at such a high level.
Guys, I was gonna name the podcast this.
The Hustle Podcast.
That was funny that
Great minds think alike. Great minds think alike. The Hustle Podcast.
I was unsure whether to keep it, but now you said that, this is the Hustle Podcast.
And whether you're an immigrant or not,
Right.
we need to value hard work. We need to value going outside of our comfort zone and walking and working at a faster pace, both physically and mentally. Not so much that you get frantic and start being sloppy, but you have to stay on your toes.
Every single day. This is what I love about America. I mean, I go to Iran. They call me Dr. Amir. I'm a PhD. Every uncle and essentially 20 years ago, 10 years ago, I became a doctor. Everyone gives me credit. In America, you have to earn your stripes every single day. And this is what I love about it. No one essentially gets anything, any entitlement. Every single day, you got to hustle to earn your credits. This is what I love about it.
I agree.
You have to work hard.
At the same time, one principle that I always believe in is sort of like, I remember that scene from Iron Man 2, right? Like Tony Stark walks into his Iron Man suit, he's like showing off and doing all these party tricks. If you got it, there's nothing wrong with flaunting it, right? You want to show when the patient walk in through the door and you got your printer sitting right there, you got your scanner and your face scanner, you want to use it. You want to kind of show off a little bit of how you're capable of, because that's I feel like that's where the fun is coming from. But in the Asian culture, they're like, oh no, you got to stay humble. Where's the fun in that? I didn't bust my balls and work this hard so that I can sit there and then act humble,
I will say that's a struggle for me. I have a hard time with self-promotion. That is something where it doesn't come naturally. It's starting to, I'm starting to realize, hey, wait a minute. I have a laser that few dentists have, and I know how to use it. I have a 3D printing system that few dentists have, and I know how to use it. I have a milling system that others have, and I know how to use it. And arguably, I might use it better than the average person for each of those.
Right. I think there is a balance between being arrogant and self-promotion. You have to promote your skills. You need to do marketing around your skills. There's a difference. I think we're talking about not being arrogant.
Right. Don't be. I think part of it is like being humorous and being able to make fun of yourself.
That's for sure.
Right. Being able to make fun of yourself, so you can be funny and then not come across as being arrogant.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you didn't answer me. What is the number one go-to application in 3D printing for you today?
I actually, if we think broader in digital dentistry, we basically pick the best tool for the job. Every technology I purchase, I go through this initial phase. To answer your question really quickly, night guards are probably our most popular application of 3D printing, practically speaking, in terms of what we do the most. Mm-hmm. It's, for better or for worse, we have it so nailed down that now my involvement in it is, Mr. Jones, I recommend a night guard. Okay, doc. No, Mr. Jones, I recommend a night guard because of reasons A, B, and C. And it may be different for each patient. Mr. Jones says yes, or Mrs. Jones says yes. And then the treatment coordinator gives him the estimate. And then we say to my assistant, Claire, he needs a night guard. Okay, doctor. That's the last time I have ever had any involvement that's the last I have any involvement in that case. She scans it, she designs it, she prints it, she polishes it and processes it, delivers it with zero adjustment on at all. And that's all I ever see of the night guard after that.
What type of software does she use to design the night guard?
She uses D3 Splint, which is one of the OGs. Very good. Yeah. We're OGs. Yes, I am the guy, teaching my assistants to be the bow and arrow superhero when everyone else is using machine guns. But yes.
That's amazing. And beyond that, temporaries, you said you do it when it makes sense. You don't do it on every case.
So back to what I was saying before, I think what you need to do is step back and say, yes, you should, when you get a tool, you should learn how to use it. But every tool I seem to buy, I have this history. When I buy a tool, I go through the excitement phase where everybody gets this, whether they need it or not. I try to fit the tool to the task rather than vice versa. So when I got a laser, everybody got lasered. I would sit there and do a occlusal pit filling for 2 hours just so to use the laser. and I would go through this phase. After a while, you realize, okay,
am I doing?
It stopped. Okay, the novelty of it's wearing off. You can see the line building up in the waiting room. You can see your schedule snowballing. You need to use what's best for the task. And we learned that laser works for certain restorations better than others. Same thing happened with CEREC. Everybody got a CEREC. And then you back off and you learn, okay, some things, some cases really should still be sent to the lab. And some cases, all day long, I'm going to do CEREC. And the same thing happened with 3D printing too. Right. Everything gets 3D printed. And then you learn, wait a minute, well, some things we back up a little bit and say, okay, for single units, it's going to be a little bit of a horse race here. Which material and time workflow works the best? And really, we should be thinking in terms of, what's the best application here? And we have differences of opinion on this, right? Because there's some things, some people have said that you should do, you can do everything can be printed. Maybe not everything.
Well, it depends on your engineering first principle, right? So I always say that I'll try to print as many things as I can, and I want to see failures. Because if you don't see failures, you don't learn anything. Now, if you're printing something and it never breaks, so now you print it thinner. And the idea is that until a failure occurs and we do failure analysis, we can learn from this lesson. And the same thing with CNC milling.
Yeah. I remember one of the first 3D full arch cases I printed. I think I might have even posted it. It was gorgeous.
You posted it. Yeah.
It was made with it was a gorgeous full arch case. I printed it and I was like, wow, this looks really cool. You know what you didn't see in the post is that thing broke 2 days later.
Whoa. It's Onyx 1.
Bago Sprintray crown, formerly known as Bago Varsio Smile.
It's better than Nexten, MFH. He started with that.
Denka, I had a Denka resin denture that broke very quickly too. And then someone like whispers to me, "Hey, that's only indicated for single unit crowns." I was like, "Oops, I should have read that." So I turned back. I reprinted that case though in Onyx 1. And that did really well, actually. That actually...
For Arch?
Yes.
You both are... I probably didn't do a good job of introducing you guys to the audience. You guys are both what I call it 3D nerds, as well as thinkers, as well as makers. You guys have FDMs, which is probably, you don't see it in dentistry a lot. It's a very small percentage of doctors. So you guys started basically tinkering around, then getting into dental 3D printing. I remember with Steven, when he bought his Moonray, after like 6-7 months, he was scratching his head. I was like, man, I really got to do some dental work. I only print Star Wars right now.
Hot Wheels cars.
Well, I was trying to get a job offer at Mattel Design Center to design Hot Wheels because I was fascinated with car design and all that, in which they actually offered me a job afterwards. Like, oh yeah, I can. I'm a dentist.
So I want to go, what's your non-dental brand called? The Voulet.
So Photodontist is the name of our doctor-to-doctor business.
Photodontist. So, and you make photography equipment, right?
Yeah. The Photodontist actually started as...
All right. What is this? What is this?
That is the VPR, and people ask, that stands for Vu's phone rig. Because that's what people were calling it. They said, hey, you got to try Vu's phone rig. And I said, well, you can't call it Vu's phone rig.
Can I play this video?
You could.
Okay.
Oh, wow, that's an old one. Yes. And it's not patent pending anymore. It has 2 patents now.
Magnetic retention, meaning that as long as you...
So how many iterations you went through to get to this?
That's a good question.
To this video, there were probably over 50. And there's been many more since. There's a prototype in my car I was just showing Steven this morning.
I keep telling him he needs to stop. I'm just like...
That's why you appreciate what it takes to bring a new product to market. It's hundreds of iterations to get it right. So that's your best-selling product, right? Mm-hmm. So what else do you have?
That is actually the first product. That was the diffuser. We called it the diffuser.
I love the brand name.
That was actually the very first product we sold. I brought it to show some friends at a dental implant course.
Amazing.
And then, yeah, so we had a doctor in New Jersey. His name is Jonathan Abenheim. He bought the diffuser and he said, this is a really good product, but I need something that I can use with my phone.
That's why you invented the...
And so he got me thinking about it. And so we started the VPR. It started as something, the first VPR, oh my gosh, we used fasteners from screws and bolts from Home Depot. We had I basically barely knew any CAD.
$600.
Now it's a mature $600-$700 product.
That's amazing.
And for those who say that, this is too expensive, I can buy something.
Yeah, buy something, but it's not gonna be VPR. So what else you have here? You have laser dentistry.
So we make some laser accessories for our friends at Fotona to help them do some laser dental procedures.
I love this, by the way. This bite stick has been very popular.
So there's a lot of little small manufacturing. This is where
this is free.
So dentistry, 3D printing is really best for things that are, small volume or custom, right? Once you get to higher volume, you want to start doing other means of making things, but for little things like this, bite sticks or, little mounting accessories, Dr. Schiffman there, that little pink stick you see there, he uses that for his laser cosmetic procedure. So he uses that to deflect the patient's lips while he's resurfacing him with his erbium laser. Yeah, so he had me design a stick, and I said, can't you just use a wooden tongue deflector? Yes. He said, but I want this little cutout here and here. Can you CAD that for me? I was like, sure, that's easy. Even I can do that. Tinkercad.
Yeah, I can make it multicolor with FDM too, which is great.
Yeah, so I multicolored his name into it, and we made just a big, gigantic batch of it. So that is just a fun project. That is the coupler cap. So the Lightwalker laser comes with a very ugly cap for the brass thing. It looks like a Sharpie tip, a Sharpie cap. And so I just found a lightsaber on Thingiverse.
That's a lightsaber.
I just booleaned out booleaned out a hole in it, and we just plug it in. So that's just my cap.
$30. How many did you sell?
Oh, like 5 of them. I was making it for myself anyway.
That's amazing.
So the beautiful thing about 3D printing, right, is that you can design one thing and you just clone more of them. You make a few. I just made one batch.
11 more printable designs.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot more.
This is famous.
Yes.
Savannah, the sticky.
All that stuff. There's always things. The handle.
The handle.
The handle was fun.
What is this? Oh, the drip tool. Drip jack.
I'm not sure Amir's gonna recommend this.
No, I do recommend it. Guys, you go to photodontist.com. It's $5. And this is cheap. Or share the STL, right? That's for STL. That's amazing.
And if you've purchased my VPR, I just give you the file for free.
This is a much needed tool. I mean, we need to build something like that. Not to steal business from you, but we need to copy you.
Personally, obviously we do these things just to do them, just to solve. This is something I just made for my own personal needs. Occasionally we would get the need this solves is occasionally designers would give me a hollow based model. Like if I order a wax up from a lab, they'll send me the die model as a hollow base. Right. And if you print a hollow base without supports and you leave it just in its original orientation, that resin just pools inside of it.
Oh, yeah.
And so by tilting the platform sideways, you let that kind of just trip out.
So why do you hollow it out?
They do it. I don't. I tell them not to.
You keep saying don't do it because you don't save that much money.
That's a problem that people don't realize. That they think that by printing hollow, they save a lot of volume. So what I advise people to do is weigh your tank with the resin in it. And then print it hollow versus printed solid, and then weigh your tank again to see how much resin you actually save. Because of the resin pulling up inside.
And then it's going to make a mess in your IPA when you're cleaning it. If you're watching this, do not hollow out.
Yes, if you print a hollow model and then you stick it in the Pro Wash,
you need a new batch.
So what'll happen, one, it'll pollute all your alcohol, but two, when you remove the model, there will be this alcohol resin soup that just spills all over your table.
We actually go through the trouble of actually wiping down our platforms and model on it with a paper towel first before we even wash it to try to avoid as much resin as possible.
Amazing. So, Dr. Shao, Steven, what is your brand?
Our brand is called Unicorn Design. It's not on Etsy anymore because we got a cease and desist from Tesla.
So tell me that story. No, it is here.
So, no, that's not mine.
That's not you. So
What happened was that I'll tinker in different type of projects. So I do engineering project, automobile projects. I do aerospace miniatures. So basically anything SpaceX built, we have a small model.
you have a SpaceX shirt too?
I'm usually wearing a SpaceX shirt.
Can you turn to the camera?
There you go. So they're kind of like my idols in terms of the rapid prototyping and also aerospace evolution.
So why you got a cease and desist?
So when the Cybertruck was first announced about 5 years ago, because I'm such a big fan, I know a lot of people in the industry, I was invited to be on site. So when Franz actually threw the steel bolt to break the window on the Cybertruck, I was standing about 15 feet away. In fact, I don't know if I should say this. I still have pieces of broken glass shards.
I can't find it in the...
No, you can't find it there anymore because what happened was that because I was on site at the Cybertruck launch, I took some isometrics photographs of the Cybertruck. I measured everything out using my iPhone. And then within about 3 days' time, I wanted to, whenever you see something fantastic, maybe we're old school, maybe we're kind of like what are we, Gen X? Whenever you watch a movie, you want to have a little toy to play with. So when I saw the Cybertruck, I wanted to have a little model miniature. So I designed it myself. But I designed it to be as accurately as humanly possible because, I want everything to be precise. So we measured out from all these photographs, and I released one of the very, very first CAD file for the Cybertruck. And then when I 3D printed one on a filament printer, people on a Tesla forum wanted to buy it. Now, me being a dentist, I'll spend a lot of time to make the very first one for myself, but I'm not in the business of selling model cars online. So I decided I didn't want to do it. And people said, I don't know how to set up a shop and all that. So people online told me, well, just set up on Etsy and throw it out there. We'll buy it from you. And because I was very hesitant to get into a side gig to 3D print these cars to sell, so I charged very high fees.
How much did you charge?
Like $55 or $45 to $55.
It had a shatter on the window too.
Shatter on the windshield. And you had like movable suspension, you had different tire wheel and all that. And I think I brought some for you guys. I don't know how many, but at the end of the year, our revenue was over 17,000.
That's amazing.
And that was within 2 months.
2 months.
So we did about $16,000 of business
Until the cease and desist came?
Season and desist came. And one thing that we didn't know was that apparently if you sell stuff on Etsy, and then it gets really popular and there's an upward movement, Etsy will buy Google AdWords for you. So at that point, if you were to type in Tesla Cybertruck, my Cybertruck on the Etsy would pop out on the first page of Google.
Copy of the cease and desist?
Yeah. I can send you the email. And then, so what happened was that I asked my friends that work at Tesla and SpaceX whether they knew about it, and they said, they all knew about it and everybody loved it. They didn't care. The reason why they eventually sent us a cease and desist letter was because Mattel signed an exclusive distribution contract with Tesla, and then so from that point on, they don't want people stealing their business.
Stealing the man's money, the middle class.
I didn't mind at that point. I don't know how other people feel. They think, $16,000 in 2 months, that's great. That's $8,000 a month in business. But for me, I'm trying to run a dental office.
How much did it cost you?
The material cost per Cybertruck, it was like $2.50.
Amazing profit. That's the untold benefit of having printers in the office.
Oh, there was 10 minutes of child labor involved too, right?
Yeah, my kids were helping. Maggie was helping. We had 3 printers running like nearly 24 hours a day printing those things, but it had to stop. But yeah, definitely we print a whole bunch of other things. So I get into architectural design. I'm a level 2 archery coach, and my mentor is actually the head of the U.S. Olympic program. So these days I use my face scanner that I bought from my office. We scan archery equipment. We design our own custom grip. I help the archery coach design these archery equipment for rapid prototyping. And some of these are being used in competition. So I feel like 3D printing is an engineering rapid prototyping technology. It's not really a dental technology. So my passion and Vu's passion, your passion in 3D printing isn't exclusive to dentistry. I always feel like dentistry is one of the many things that I do, but the more skill sets that you acquire laterally in different fields, the better dentist you become. And that's how I approach CAD/CAM technology.
There's a practice who purchased one of my VPR products in Hawaii, Dr. Eric Miroka, and he requested a custom imprinting of his office logo. His office name is Kaizen Dental. I love it. And I was like, I think I know what that word means, but let me look it up.
It's kind of continuous improvement. Yeah.
He's a great guy. Does a lot of dentures.
Amazing.
Yeah, so I think you mumbled it in passing, but that's such an important philosophy. And whatever you do, think of how you look back at it and think, can you do it better the next time?
Exactly. Again, it's a fight against complacency. Final thoughts, advice to new dentists who are not new, but they're hesitating.
So my very first advice to anybody for digital dentistry is to get a scanner and learn how to use it well. Everything else comes from that.
What scanner do you recommend?
Ooh, that's a loaded question. I'll be honest. If I were to pick again, I would probably buy a Trios. I am pretty invested in the Meta ecosystem right now. I think that there's an argument for every scanner. I can make some really good points about. If I had to pick one, I think the Trios is probably the best one looking at it from the outside. I do fine with my Medit. I have to use my OmniCam because I'm locked into the CEREC milling system for the time being anyway. The door's cracking a little bit.
Well, you got to buy it at the in-lab. You got to pay $300 a month. The door is not open. It's not about open or closed. It's about limiting you from. Imagine if you couldn't put a Baby Yoda on our printers. That's the issue people have.
That's right.
You can't import properly.
Well, the fact is that you have to export or import at all.
Yeah, there we go. So Trios is what you recommend. Trios 5 probably is the best scanner in the market.
I was actually talking to, my friends over at CADRay, if I'm allowed to mention their name. They actually think, and this varies within the team, they have many team members there. The one I spoke to, he spoke very highly of the Trios 4 in terms of the value proposition. The wireless 5, the 5 wireless is the king. Obviously, it's the flagship product. It's the one that everyone's espousing. The 4, though, might be the bang for the buck champion. Just like in the Medit sphere of things, Medit having by far the best software suite. The Medit i600 is by far demonstrably the best bang for the buck. I mean, it's
$7,000 scanner.
It's $10,000 even for the i600 with no upgrade. I think no upgrade.
No laptop.
Laptop not included.
Yeah. Got it.
So that one's really good. If you are in the CEREC system, then if you're in the CEREC world for whatever reason, I know that they're starting to recommend the PrimeScan Connect. That's one that
You're not gonna get into that.
I'm struggling with that. I really am because I don't like being locked in. But at the same time, I have to say, I have on very good authority from a very prominent lab technician that the PrimeScan is objectively, put aside all the corporate baggage, the PrimeScan is a very good scanner.
But here's another little question. If a dentist wanted to get into the digital workflow and a CAD/CAM journey today, would you recommend for them to jump into a CEREC system?
So the answer depends on what they're going to be doing the most, right? Because if you are going to be doing a lot of same-day crowns and bridges, let's be honest. I mean, CEREC and Dentsply Sirona remain the company and system to beat for same-day crown fabrication. They have the workflow so smooth and ironed out. You can make fun of their other products or some of them, but as far as the printing concern, nobody gets the job done as smoothly and fast. You're talking about import export. There is no import and export if you use the CEREC PrimeScan and the Prime Mill. It's a very impressive piece of technology, and we see other competitors coming in. like Glidewell and stuff. And I think that there's a value proposition there too. But I walk over to my neighbor and use their Prime scan and their Prime mill, and it's a fantastic piece of kit. So coming in brand new, if crowns are your thing, sure. If dentures are your thing, then it becomes a different scanning proposition.
That's probably 3Shape. You want gum, you want blood.
So 3Shape does fantastic for that because they're not using a structured light approach that Medit is using. Sorry if I'm getting technical there. But Medit is a very good tooth scanner. 3Shape is a good everything scanner. And so that's where, you have to ask, what are you going to be doing?
Confocal, right? That's the technology?
I think so.
Yeah. Amazing. What about you, Steven? Advice to new dentists, not new dentists, been in dentistry, but they want to get digital.
So to answer the question, I think, I shared a little bit earlier regarding my personal journey on how when I first graduated, I was working at my mother-in-law's office. Field was technology from the 70s. So I feel like when I left that office, I tried to run the other direction as far as I can because I knew what would happen if you stay stagnant in a world where you don't adopt new technology and how backward things can become. So today in 2023, what I can say that if a dentist get into digital dentistry today, whether they buy a scanner, whether they buy a milling unit, they buy the software or the 3D printer, the journey that they have to take is so much easier than what we had to do even just 5-6 years ago. Things are so much more efficient today. So that goal that we set up many years ago to have a technology in which is accessible in ways that anybody can afford it and anybody can use it is here. The only hurdle that's left to cross, and this is the question that I asked Dr. Voulet is that would you still recommend a CEREC? It's the integration of a full digital workflow from A to Z that encompasses all things. So in terms of having a scanner that connects seamlessly to the design software, to the printer, or a milling machine, right now, I think that last bit of connection. So the way that I'll describe it is sort of like, hey, if I were to go from here to Disneyland today, if you were to tell me I hop into my car and drive right into Disneyland, I get out, I'm in the middle of Disneyland, that's awesome. But if you tell me that I have to take a bus and then take a train, get off the bus, get on another bus, and then get on a shuttle, and then walk another 5 minutes to get there, that every step of obstacle makes it a little bit more difficult. And I'll say that annoyance is not a wall that stops you from crossing from one side to another. People can get over their annoyance if they're diligent enough. And I think that's the difference between some of the early adopters like me and Dr. Voulet.
Yeah, you guys get a kick in solving those problems.
That's right. We're passionate. We're passionate about crossing over. This is not like a religious journey where we enjoy the torture, and like the torture showcases how dedicated we are. But for most people, once you build up sufficient obstacles, it might as well be a wall. They don't want to cross it.
Right.
We have a few connections left for us to get there. But today, if I had to make a recommendation for scanning software and printing software, I'll say that if you start with Medit, it's not the best scanner, but as Dr. Voulet said, it has the best software ecosystem out there. It's the most rapidly developed software system out there, and it costs you absolutely nothing. So in my office, we design veneers, we design partial dentures, we design wax apps, splints, and everything within the Medit ecosystem. And anybody can download the software for free, even if you don't have a Medit scanner, so you can try it out. And then when it comes to printer ecosystem, I've tried several systems, and to this day, I think Sprintray is really, I think the question is no longer which system is best. I think the answer is pretty clear today in 2023. Unless you have specific reason to not want to get into a Sprintray ecosystem, you buy a Sprintray. Unless you absolutely hate Elon Musk's political agendas, you're going to buy a Tesla if you want to have an EV, right? And then if you don't get a Sprintray and you get a different 3D printing ecosystem, there are more obstacles that you have to cross over. We're very aware of what those obstacles are. And to a certain extent, I'm aware of what those companies are doing to try to overcome that. And I can say that the gap is not really closing. The only thing that's left for people that don't get a CEREC and they end up getting the Medit and the Sprint ecosystem is that, what is our CNC mill solution? What if I want to do an EMAX? How can I do this chairside? There are different ways of doing it, but then again, it's another shuttle bus and it's another 5-minute walk to get there. Once we have this entire system worked out, I really think that for most dentists that graduate out of school, they're just going to get a whole entire ecosystem, and they're going to start their journey 10, 20 years ahead of their predecessor like myself. And we're very, very nearly there. I was teaching at UCLA. I'm fairly convinced that most of the students that graduate today, within the next 3 years, they're going to have
It's gonna be digital.
yeah, they're going to have a 3D scanner and 3D printer in their office.
What about you, Dr. Le, on the printing? What do you recommend?
So on the printing, I think I've said it earlier today, is I recommend, just like I do with our photography products,
Right.
I recommend, whether it's mine or someone else's, or yours or someone else's,
Just get it started. Yeah.
I recommend using something that your team will use. That's it. Okay? Because if you make this all about you and what you can or cannot do, you will greatly limit your potential as a doctor. If instead you rely on your team members, empower them, enable them, enhance their skills, improve their market value as a worker, then one, they will like their job more. Two, you will get more done. And three, they're more likely to stay with you longer. So important in today's job market. So does it keep coming back to Sprintray? It kind of does. I'll be honest. There's nothing else. Anybody fair-minded who's looked at the other systems and looked at, you're right, the shuttle bus, the train, the subway, whatever you want to say. I've seen super assistants use it. I've seen not so super assistants use it. I've seen people of all different backgrounds, proficiencies, able to use the system. It's once, is there training? Yes. We're not at the point where it's a toaster or a microwave yet.
We'll get it there, you know us. We'll get it there, yeah. The microwave easy.
I think it depends on what you use it for as well, though.
It's gotten so, it's even in the short time span we've had them, they've gotten a lot better. I hate to say it, but I did not like my Moonray. I didn't like it.
Steven has a different opinion.
I still love mine. Yeah, I still have mine and it still works. I still use it on a regular basis.
Use what your people will use.
Very good. Thank you both for coming to our HQ. It was a very fun conversation. Hopefully we're going to do more of these together.
Yes.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you. Guys, that was good.
Good.